Good morning, everybody. So I'll just get this out of the way. I'm 6'8", but I'm the short one in my family. So we'll just leave it at that. I'm actually here not to talk about me, but to talk about my boss, Mayor Steinberg. He's the 56th mayor of Sacramento, and I have the honor of introducing him. I'm getting to know him better as a politician, but more so as a father and a husband. And those parts are probably the biggest takeaways for me. But he also had the foresight to hire the city's first chief innovation officer, so I'm honored to introduce Mayor Steinberg.
Thank you very much, Louis. I hope, and I know you're going to hear more from Louis in the next several days, because I think hiring him as a chief innovation officer maybe speaks as prominently as anything about how serious this city is about innovation. Welcome to Sacramento. Welcome to the innovation capital of California, Sacramento, California. Thank you to Gordon and Jesse and the Meeting of the Minds. How many countries are represented here? Over 180 cities. I mean, I could not be prouder that this organization chose the capital city, my city, as the place to hold this convening. And so I'm Darrell Steinberg. I grew up in the Bay Area. I moved here 34 years ago after graduating law school at UC Davis. I came to Sacramento to take a job. The job did not last, and I never left Sacramento. And I never left because this place, throughout those 34 years, has changed dramatically, yet its essence has always remained the same. Inclusive, welcoming, and engaging. And I want to tell you a little bit about my history because it's relevant to the convening. I won't talk much about myself, but just about some of the things I have been privileged to work on. So I've come full circle as mayor. I started on the city council in the 90s. I was elected to the state assembly, served 6 years, sat out a couple years, became state senator, and became the first Sacramentan to be president pro tem of the Senate in 125 years. Now, I actually drew the short straw because my tenure was during the worst recession and worst budget in modern state history, but that's part of the story here as well. I think I'm probably known for four things, and maybe other things, but four things as a state legislator. One, helping the state through that terrible budget crisis where we had to make unbelievable cuts and where I recognized that without resources, without capital, there's not much you can do to advance an innovative agenda. Secondly, I authored SB 375, which is the nationally recognized bill that says to California regions, you must plan in a way that reduces greenhouse gas emissions. In other words, we will give you more money, more transportation money, big money, if you build housing closer to where people work, to where people shop, to where people play. It's SB 375, and it's changed the planning paradigm in California. Third, I'm probably known for establishing California's Career Pathways Trust, which was a $1.5 billion investment in bringing back what I call the modern version of vocational education in California's high schools, to actually begin thinking about integrating workforce and public education. Of course, in our country, unlike many other countries around the world, we are siloed. Education is very different from workforce development, workforce training. And fourth, I may be best known for authoring California's Mental Health Services Act, Proposition 63, which is now generating $2 billion a year, for desperately needed mental health services in California. Now, why do I tell that? Not to brag or not to, talk about the good old days, but to say that when I decided to run for mayor in 2016 in Sacramento and come back full circle, it maybe is a surprise, but maybe it isn't a surprise, that the very opportunities and challenges that we are dealing with here in Sacramento are actually reflective of those four key issues that framed my state legislative career. And what is the difference? In a state legislature, you author a bill, and it begins and it ends with the governor either choosing to sign it or not sign it. Then you go on to the next thing, or maybe a continuation of the theme that you started. Man, in local government, it's a circle. There is no beginning or end. When you trying to build a city and create an innovation city, it is a daily effort to advance, to have a breakthrough, to build the structure and the infrastructure so that 5 years, 10 years down the line, your residents can look and say, wow, this is a different place than it was when we started, and a better place. So what is Sacramento? Here's the big theme here, and this is what I ran for mayor on. Sacramento has long been a government town, and we're a proud capital city. But if you were here when I started 34 years ago, there wasn't much nightlife. There were very few restaurants. There was little or no housing downtown. The vast majority of the employment base, of course, was state government. And our economy waxed and waned, rose and fell with the state of the state budget. And over the past 10 years or so, there has been an awakening in this city that if we're going to build the kind of city that actually draws people here, that actually makes the next generation want to choose to live in Sacramento as opposed to the high-cost Bay Area, then we need to create a renaissance. We need to build a high-wage, modern private sector economy, and it's begun to happen. The seminal event was several blocks from here when we saved the Kings, the great Sacramento Kings, who are now 10-10, by the way, and competing again in the NBA. We built the Gold One Center instead of losing the Kings to Seattle, and the downtown is beginning to take shape. 25 years ago, no one thought there would be a market for downtown housing. Now, because people are voting with their feet, and younger people don't want to have to drive long distances to get to work, we are now seeing a housing boom and a housing renaissance in Sacramento. So in 2018 here, the story of Sacramento is that we are at the beginning of an urban renaissance. We are at the beginning of changing the economic nature of our city. And yet I ran on 3 prongs. One, to enhance that renaissance. 2, to connect that renaissance to our neighborhoods, and especially the young people who are left out and do not have the same economic or educational opportunities to be able to participate in the emerging and the modern economy. 3, to deal with the housing crisis in this city, including the vexing, difficult issue of homelessness, which is largely connected to untreated mental illness and drug addiction. So here you are, a living laboratory here in Sacramento. And I don't want to be Pollyannish with you and say, man, everything is fabulous here. This is an incredibly exciting time in our city. We are attracting some incredible investments, whether it's the VW subsidiary, Electrify America, chosen as the Green City, $44 million. We're going to have 500 EV shuttles in our city next year where people can rent for an hour or a half an hour at a time and leave at their destination. We're, of course, part of the partnership between Uber and Jump. We now have the jump bike craze is all over the city. Scooters are next. I recognize the following principles. Number one, in order to change, it takes strong leadership. And I'm not just talking about myself. It takes a civic will from all sectors to want to grow and to want to change in the right way. Secondly, it takes genuine partnership. It takes genuine partnership. And 3, it takes real capital. Money matters. And so let me break that down for just a moment or two as an introduction to your time here in Sacramento. Partnership is everything. The University of California at Davis, for example, is 15 miles from here to the west. It might as well be 500 miles in terms of our relationships. For the first time now, with a new chancellor and a partnership with the city and the region, they are actually going to come across the river here, and we're going to do what we should have done a long time ago. We are going to partner to build what we call Aggie Square, to create a center for innovation, technology, life science, with the goal of creating 25,000 new private sector jobs in Sacramento, in the heart of our city. I talked about Electrify America. I talked about jump bikes. Centene, we're locating our first national Fortune 100 headquarters in Sacramento with the Centene Corporation, 5,000 new private sector jobs. Our public agencies are all part of the vision, not just the city. Our municipal utilities district, our regional transit, are all engaged in public-private partnerships now to seek to increase mobility options for people beyond just the single occupancy vehicle. We're trying to live SB 375 and make our city the model city for that state law. Funding is so important. Like many California cities, we deal with significant high costs, especially when it comes to public employees. And so I took a big risk this last November. I went out and asked the voters for a half-cent sales tax. And under the peculiar California law, if you're not specific about how you want to spend the money, it's a majority vote. If you're specific, it's 2/3. I said, let's do a majority vote. I told the voters that we want to raise $50 million a year for inclusive economic development, to invest in high-wage job creation, to invest in affordable housing, to invest in alleviating homelessness, and to invest in career pathways for young people. And it was tricky because a lot of people said, Mayor, great, but you can't guarantee it. And they were right. The voters responded, 57% of the voters said yes, and now we have $50 million a year in capital to invest in inclusive economic development. And what do we intend to do with that? We intend to be full partners here, to have some real skin in the game, to try to attract more industry, to establish a housing trust fund and work with the new opportunity zone concept out of the federal government to actually build thousands of affordable housing units, to create year-round paid work experiences beginning in high school. What's wrong with the European model, the model in Germany and Switzerland, where 40% of Swiss 16-year-olds have year-round paid work experience tied to their curriculum? When is industry going to step up and start developing curriculum? When are we going to determine people's eligibility to work in various industries based on more than just a college degree or a public certificate, but on an industry-based badge? That's the future here that we're trying to create in Sacramento. And on housing and homelessness, you can't have a great city. You cannot have a city that is for some and not for all. You could not have pockets of poverty. In Sacramento, our poverty rate grew higher than all but 7 cities in the country between 2012 and 2016, and that's not a statistic I'm proud of. So the connection between growth and innovation and the neighborhoods and the young people must always be paramount. And homelessness need not be hopelessness. This is a vexing problem because there isn't a single cause. It's mental health, it's substance abuse, it's the high cost of housing. But we also know how to get people off the streets if we're committed to doing so. And so you are in the middle of a great stew here, where every day and every week as mayor of this city, I get to announce a new innovation, a new venture, a new company that wants to build small electric motors. We're still competing for Major League Soccer, and we're going to get a Major League Soccer team. We have the rail yards, the largest undeveloped infill parcel, an extension of our downtown in Sacramento. You probably saw as you came in from the airport that we're just on the cusp of essentially building a second downtown. We're clear that climate and economic growth cannot be polar opposites, that they must be one and the same. And yet, there is no straight line. And you always takes 3 steps forward and maybe a 1 step to the side. And the process of government is slow. And that's why partnership, that's why a vital private sector, that's why making it clear, like we did with Verizon, that if you want to come on in here and invest in our infrastructure, we will work with you to waive permit fees and make it easier and faster for you to locate here in the city. That's why partnership is so essential. So welcome to the capital city. I know that you're going to be taking buses and you're going to get out to our neighborhoods and you're going to see some of the innovative things that are going on in our neighborhoods. No, gentrification is a challenge, but we're committed to no gentrification in this city. We can grow and remain affordable at the same time. I welcome you. I hope you have a great time. I hope you get to eat in some of our great restaurants because we're becoming quite a food center as well in the city of Sacramento. And I wish you nothing but the best. Thank you again for coming to Sacramento.